Steve said, "Is it OK that I can't get into this series of Brexit? The first two series has a clear plot and outcome, but this one seems to be confusing." Yes, not only has Brexit jumped the shark, it has also tried to clear 3 whales and a Loch Ness Monster. And now, look, I know you're all completely over Brexit, and by you, I mean Alex. And I know you are totally confused by everything that has happened this week. And again, I mean Alex. So, look, pay attention. I'm going to make this as simple as I possibly can for you. Alex. OK, here goes. After saying he would get us out of the EU on October the 31st, Boris Johnson finally got what he says is a great deal. Now, it's basically the same deal Theresa May made, but instead of the backstop, it now says, "Eat shit, Northern Ireland." He gave MPs 3 days to scrutinise it, which they said wasn't enough time. So last night, Boris Johnson said, fine, you can have more time as long as we have an election straight afterwards, and suggested the date of December the 12th. MPs will decide on that on Monday, but most parties are saying they're not going to agree to an election unless he can guarantee we won't crash out of the EU without a deal. Did you get all that, Alex?
Do you know the worst thing? He's texting Wes from Love Island.
So I was just taking a selfie. What were you on about?
Listen, here's what's really interesting about all this. Boris Johnson is trying to pitch himself as if everyone else is playing games and he's the one trying to get Brexit done. But the truth is, he's playing games as well. Because look at it this way, right? If he has an election just before Christmas, right after a deal is either voted through or knocked down, one of two things will happen. He'll either go, hurrah, I got Brexit done, vote for me. Or he'll go, oh, they won't let me get Brexit done, vote for me. It's a really smart way of doing it. Either way, he comes out looking like the hero.
Clever girl.
So now we've got this weird situation where the Brexit bill's not quite passing. They need more time. There's not going to be an election. He doesn't have a majority. It's been dubbed a zombie parliament, which is ironic because if Brexit is still being debated next Sunday, I've checked this, it will actually be 1,228 days later.
Zombie Parliament sounds like a game you'd download on your phone, doesn't it?
So is a zombie parliament a parliament that now can't get anything done or anything through?
Well, no, that's the interesting bit. So the Tories, even Sajid Javid, Boris Johnson are saying it's a zombie parliament. They can get shit done. He got his Queen's speech passed. He's actually got a second reading of the bill. The only thing they can't do, and in fact all he has to do is go, yeah, we'll give you an extension, and everyone will be happy. But they're billing this as if Parliament is stopping them moving forward, which is actually not what's going on.
I'm more confused than Alex.
Here's the question, do we want a Christmas election?
Wow, wow, wow. Because they want to, so Boris wants it on December the 12th, which is considered a Christmas election.
Yeah.
Which I think is missing a trick. If you're going to have a Christmas election, do it in that boring bit between Christmas and New Year.
Oh, nice.
That's what you want. You want 25th, Christmas Day, 26th, Boxing Day, 27th, Election Day. Perfect excuse to say, I'm sorry, I can't talk to my racist uncle, I'm going out.
The person I feel sorry for is Santa, because he still doesn't know if he's got freedom of movement across the EU.
I think if you're going to have a Christmas election, then you should vote when you sit on Santa's knee. That's how you should. You go out and you just sit on his knee. Hello, yes, I'd like to vote, please. There's an interesting thing that happens if there is a Christmas election.
What an image of you sitting on Santa's knee that
is. You just ruined Christmas.
Yeah. Santa going, bloody hell, I thought I had a shit beard.
The question is, what's going to happen? OK, now, here's the interesting thing. Boris Johnson does seem to be ahead in the polls, but Tory voters tend to be older and tend not to come out when it's colder. So is that going to work against him? But then, on the other hand, if you think about it, Santa is the perfect representation of Labor right now. He's red, he gives away loads of stuff, and a lot of Jewish people feel disconnected from him. If you missed the big news, there will be an election on December the 12th. Will Boris Johnson gain a majority? Will Corbyn take power? Has Farage thrown a spanner into the works? And, being that voters are going to be walking to polling stations across icy footpaths, will it literally be a snap election?
I am excited.
Really?
I love elections. Yeah. So I'm living in the right era. I love genuinely the excitement. I love the rosettes. I love like the polls. I love the speech. I get excited, and then the election day.
I'm not happy with it. Not December all the way through. As you know, December for me is Christmas time, and I don't want this shit getting in the way of like Christmas telly. I don't want to see a leadership debate when it could be Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. And I certainly don't want to see a John Lewis advert where it's like a badger and a fox on a trampoline discussing Brexit.
Let's go through the main party's game plans. Clearly a lot's going to happen over the next few weeks, but right now, after Boris Johnson said he'd rather die in a ditch than ask for a Brexit extension, the Conservative Party are still saying they will get Brexit done. They're currently using the slogan, Britain deserves better, which is kind of hilarious considering they've been in power for the last 10 years. And apparently they're going to target someone that they're calling Workington Man. Now, he's a middle-aged man, he lives up north, and he loves rugby league. I think that might be me.
You're not... What? You go up north one day a week to play rugby league. You're not a north... Just... You've started to believe you're a northerner.
Kinda.
Right, you're from the southern hemisphere.
I do spend a lot of time in Warrington, as you know. I bang on about it all the time, and in particular around the rugby league club. And I think they've got this wrong, because you can't distill people from any area down into a stereotype, and you can't... They think northern people are a certain way, and they're just not. The people I've met in Warrington are financial advisors, web designers, truck drivers, and mindfulness experts. And I'm going to tell you something, they are hard to win over. Put it this way, one of the blokes I play rugby league with sent me a WhatsApp message this week that said, "So when do we see Cockwomble dead in a ditch like he promised?"
You know when you're, like, talking about someone on a text and accidentally send it to them?
Now, Labor have recycled the slogan for the many, not the few, as well as a lot of policies from the 70s. They're promising to get Brexit sorted within 6 months, and by sorted they mean they want to put through their own Brexit deal, then put that to a referendum, but some of their own MPs will campaign against it. So you can see why they don't want to talk about anything but Brexit for the next 5 weeks. And what's interesting is they've already started by not really talking about Brexit. Do you think it's going to cut through?
I don't think you can avoid talking about Brexit. I don't think you can go to a stump speech and go, "Good evening."
I think that's what my surgeon gave me.
Did you just do a talking stump? That is the lowest moment of our show in 200 episodes.
I mean, what was interesting, though, was yesterday, watching it all, because everyone else is talking about Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn's the only person who's not, and people are sick of Brexit, and I just wonder if that's going to... if, weirdly, it's going to work for him. Right, so the Lib Dems are saying they will stop Brexit, but they're using a strategy that's been termed bicep kissing. That's when you keep telling people how well you're going to do in the election. So Labor and the Tories are probably going to go, look, it's going to be a tough struggle, we don't know how we're going to go. But the Lib Dems are going to be talking themselves up right up until election day.
The problem is the phrase bicep kissing, because in my head all I'm picturing is like a fake tanned pair of pants Vince Cable. Posing. Is anyone else picturing that? To be honest, I was picturing it earlier in the show. I shouldn't be thinking about it.
I think with that bicep kissing, someone's just used that emoji in the WhatsApp group and it's just taken off. Could have easily been a strategy called Smiley Poo.
And look, in huge UKIP news, their leader, Dick Brain, resigned this week. That's right.
Dick Brain?
The leader of UKIP was Dick Brain.
How did I not know that?
I know.
Why have we found this out too late? We've been doing a comedy show about politics and we didn't know Dick Brain was the leader of UKIP.
Yeah. Turns out he's gone home to Cockermouth. And look, recent elections have not gone the way you think they're going to go. When Theresa May called the 2017 election, she was 20 points in front in the polls. And by the end of it, she lost her majority. So anything could happen, and that's why it's important to register to vote now. This isn't OK that Jeremy Corbyn is so toxic to some that a former Labor minister goes as far as promoting Boris Johnson as the only potentially acceptable PM. Yeah, look, some senior Labor figures this week said they won't be supporting Jeremy Corbyn at the election and even told people to vote Tory. Now, a lot of people are claiming this is just part of an anti-Corbyn conspiracy, but if Josh and Alex did an interview in which they called me a prick and then said you should watch Mock the Week, you'd pay attention.
Oh, I didn't think you listened to Steve Wright. I said Wanker and Graham Norton.
Also, I'd never ever call you a prick in an interview. Yeah, I mean, I write it on the odd WhatsApp and dub it on the toilet roll. I've even written it on the sole of your shoe, like Andy from Toy Story.
All right, before we kick off everything about the election, I want to tell you two interesting facts. There's nothing funny about these, but I just want to tell you these facts. Firstly, Boris Johnson reckons he needs to win 9 more seats to win a majority and get Brexit done. That's the first fact. Here's the second fact. There are 11 seats in this country that were decided by less than 100 votes in 2017. One of those seats was decided by 2 votes. Yes, Alex?
It's a strong use of the word interesting you've used there. I'm joking. But during, like, 2 seats...
Yep.
Like, if they were campaigning, surely don't campaign to the rest, just go to their houses. Just knock on the door and go, what do you want? Next door to turn their music down. Done.
I mean, genuinely, this whole election could come down to, like, about 600 votes. It is that tight. My point being, it doesn't matter who you support. These facts alone should inspire you to get out and vote in a few weeks' time. Now, Ross said, is it OK that Jeremy Corbyn and Labor want to give free broadband to everyone in Britain? That was the biggest news. And I love that it was revealed at 10 o'clock last night. They just put out this statement that this is what's going to happen tomorrow. Labor promised that they are going to provide free internet to everyone in Britain by taking control of BT's broadband service, which raises the question, do we want the government in control of our broadband?
I certainly don't want them looking at what I'm on. You know
what I mean? I mean, we know how annoying... You know how annoying it is when only one person in the house has the password to the Wi-Fi. What happens when that one person is the Prime Minister?
What if Jeremy Corbyn leaves the parental settings on? Brooker's going to have to phone up the Prime Minister to get him to turn them on.
But so Labour wanted to lower the voting age to 16, didn't they?
Yep.
No wonder if they wanted to reel out free internet, I'll tell you, they were going to aim for the Year 11 schoolboy vote. Otherwise dubbed Wankington Man.
I mean, there are a lot of concerns at the moment about how much do you want the government in control of various services, but in particular the internet. You know, are they going to run the internet the way they used to run the railways? You're going to get up first thing in the morning and find out, you know, there's a good service on YouTube, but the severe delays to Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, oh, God, you know what emails are like? Nothing for 15 minutes and then 3 come along at once. Boris Johnson called the promise a crazed communist scheme. But then in 2015, the Tories described Ed Miliband's plan to put a cap on energy bills as Marxist and then adopted it themselves 2 years later. So there's every chance they'll have their own internet server in 2 years' time called We've Always Been Asking Jeeves.
It's a weird one, because it's the only government policy. It just sounds like the kind of thing a company would do to get you to join. Like, free broadband... He might as well go, our new policy is 600 free minutes, or, like, our new policy is we're bringing back Orange Wednesdays. Like, it's not... It doesn't feel like a policy. So it feels like Jeremy Corbyn is having an argument with Virgin Media, and they've gone, you think you can get a better deal? And you go, yeah, I'm going to fucking nationalise it.
Moving on, Ross said, is it OK Farage and Boris are fixing the election? Now, after Nigel Farage said to the Prime Minister a few weeks ago, the Brexit Party will run against you in every seat unless you do a deal, this week he said, we'll step aside in every Tory-held seat, but we still haven't done a deal, which made everyone think they've totally done a deal. Everyone denies that there's been a deal done, but was that a massive U-turn?
I think it was, and, like, in my experience, there's only one thing that I think could have made Farage do such a big U-turn.
Yep.
And that's sweets. And hear me out, because this is my experience with a 2-year-old daughter.
Yep.
She'll be being an absolute prick, saying, no, bring out the Haribo. It's a different ball game. So all I'm saying is, if they do a bit of digging, I reckon some Star Mix has changed hands.
Now, the upshot of all this is the Brexit Party...
Political analysis.
You know, the Brexit Party is only going to stand in seats that are held by Labor. Now, to explain it, it's a little bit complicated, so we're going to demonstrate it with something that did come up earlier on in the show, a technique we've learnt this week, but we've adapted. It's called a battle of the thumbs. Right, now... I'm going to need some contestants. Josh, can you come over here and sit on that seat, please?
Happy to.
Excellent. Daisy, can you come over here and sit on this seat in the middle, please? Thank you. Joe, can you come over here and sit on this seat for the Battle of the Thumbs? Alex, you are good where you are. Now...
It's all right. I'll keep a Yorkie in my prosthetic for times like this, so...
You absolute shit!
There you go.
No!
All right. So, Daisy, if you could put on Jeremy Corbyn. Joe, if you could put on Boris Johnson. Josh, you've got Nigel Farage happening. Now, if you could all lock up in the middle, as if you're about to try and get your... There we go. Now, I'm going to try and explain this very simply. In the Tory-held seats, Farage says he's going to sit out, hoping that that Boris Johnson and the Tories take on Labor and they win the seats, OK? That's what he's hoping. Now, in the marginal seats, he's hoping that Labor and the Tories fight against each other. The Tories are probably going to lose because they normally do. He'll get some of the votes, then he'll romp home for the win. All right? But he may end up taking Tory votes and he could end up giving the win to Labor, so anything could happen. So, let's see how this plays out.
Are we doing this just a proper thumb war?
A proper thumb war now.
Oh, my God.
Let's get ready to thumb war! Keep your arms down. Arms down, arms down. Corbyn has won that one. There was a debate on... Well, not a debate. There was BBC Question Time tonight. Basically, if you didn't see it, here's what happened. Let's see. Jeremy Corbyn did pretty well, according to all of the pundits. Nicola Sturgeon did pretty well. Joe Swinson will not be happy with the way it went. Boris Johnson had a bit of an average time. The interesting thing is Jeremy Corbyn said he will be neutral if there is a second referendum. He has declared he will he will be Corbyn neutral. If there is a referendum.
Well, that's going to help sort it out, isn't it?
Yep. ITV held a leaders' debate earlier this week with Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn. It was on Tuesday. It prompted John to say, is it OK that Conservative campaign headquarters rebranded themselves as a fact-checking organisation during the leadership debate? Now, here's what happened. The Tories changed their Twitter page to make it look like an official fact-check page. Was any of that OK, do you think?
Oh, I'm massively in favour.
Really?
Yeah, because everything that's said on Twitter is so ridiculous anyway. People make up fake accounts and say horrible things. The quicker people figure out it's all a nonsense, the better. My only complaint is I think they should definitely have put up a tweet where they checked whether fact checker was definitely an independent fact-checking account and then confirmed it with a big tick.
Their attitude after was remarkable as well, because all the Tories just doubled down. None of them went, oh, sorry, we shouldn't have done that. They just went, no, get over it. Get over it. It was clear. Who fell for that kind of shit? I mean, is that the kind of government the Tories are going to be? That, like, will mislead people and then tell you you're wrong when you question them on it?
Yes.
So all right, let's move on to Labor, who released their manifesto yesterday. It caused a stir. It was a big stir. Now, basically, it includes an increase of funding to the NHS, more police officers, renationalising the rail network, a ban on fracking, a green transformation fund and a promise to end the need for food banks. There's also the promise of a 4-day working week. Now, this is a really interesting one. A lot of research suggests a 4-day working week would be good. People actually work a little bit harder, they get paid the same amount, they have an extra day off, they're happier. Here's the weird thing. When Corbyn brought it up in the debate, people laughed at him openly. What is it about Jeremy Corbyn that makes him unable to sell people an extra day off?
See, to me, the second someone says, we're going to give you an extra day off, that should be it. That should be an automatic win.
Yeah.
But I think they've completely underestimated how little the public want to spend extra time with their families.
Labor also had in their manifesto an entire section called Disability with Dignity that promises to ensure that disabled people can participate fully and equally in society. So boiling down the Labor manifesto, it basically says we're going to tax the few to help support the many. Now, some experts are saying they may end up having to tax the many as well. Basically, Labor are asking you if you want to take a punt that they can pull this off. They're saying they can jump 40 buses on a motorbike, and they're asking whether you think they can actually do it. Is it OK that 6 months ago Boris Johnson said Brexit would be a Titanic success? Is it OK that this week he was proven right when he collided with a massive block of ice? Yes, the big news of the week centred around the Prime Minister's absence in interviews. As Rossendale Rubicon said, is it OK Boris was a melt and replaced by an ice sculpture on Channel 4's climate debate? OK, so last night Channel 4 held a leaders' debate on climate change. Now, Boris Johnson declined to attend, so Channel 4 replaced him with a giant block of melting ice. It was cold, unfeeling, and you could see right through it.
Was I the only one that tuned in and was disappointed that it wasn't a 6-foot ice sculpture of Boris Johnson?
Not at all. I was disappointed as well.
I found it quite an ironic choice, because I've always kind of imagined that everywhere Boris goes, he leaves a little puddle.
The Tories sent Michael Gove to the debate, who was accompanied by Johnson's dad, but Gove was turned away.
I love the idea that Michael Gove originally tried to get in with fake ID, and the bouncer's like, look, your name's not McLovin, is it?
You can't just do that. You can't just send your mate and your dad. Like, you can't... Oh, I've missed another debate. Who's going? My cat and my uncle. Like... Also, Are we sure it's not just that Boris Johnson's had a very stressful 3 weeks and that's actually him that's with Mike Gove?
I mean, it worked well for the Tories, though, because it was a massive distraction, because no one was talking about their failure to turn up. Everyone was talking about the ice sculpture and, you know, Michael Gove being there. I mean, I imagine Greta Thunberg, you know, tuning in, thinking, great, there's been a national debate on climate change. I wonder what the topic of conversation is the next day. And then just going, I've been shitting on a yacht for 3 months and you're talking about a fucking ice sculpture? Johnson was accused of ducking the media when it appeared he won't be available for an interview with the BBC's Andrew Neil. But he did agree to an interview with Andrew Marr this Sunday morning, but the BBC said, no, you don't do Marr until you do Neil. That's what we've always been told in television. So... it means Boris Johnson is now free on Sunday morning.
He is waiting for the big one. He's waiting for Sunday brunch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's looking at it and thinking, I'm not getting grilled by Andrew Neil when I could be sat next to Ian Beale for 2 hours eating a croissant and making a flan with Simon Rimmer.
Yeah, but it's going to be the shortest version of Sunday brunch ever, because everything's oven-ready.
What else? He could do the full Sunday morning. Hollyoaks Omnibus, I'd like to see him in that.
What, doing the sign language?
Just Tony going, I've got a new neighbour and he won't fucking shut up.
Apparently what he's doing is what's called the Ming vase strategy that's been used in other elections, where basically the Tories are in front in the polls, apparently. They're already in power. It's like carrying a Ming vase across the floor. All you've got to do is just get it to the other side. Don't slip, don't do anything stupid, just be really careful and don't do too many interviews. Does that make sense?
Well, I can't really imagine tiptoeing or carrying a Ming vase, so no, not really to me.
Is it OK that the Andrew Neil interview means this week's Pissy Corbyn segment is going to take up half the show? Yes, after Prince Andrew's fall from grace last week, Jeremy Corbyn virtually said, hold my homebrewed parsnip wine.
Jeremy Corbyn does every interview like he's in the last stages of a relationship. I paid for the Vitamix, actually, so I get to keep it.
Look, the big thing that came out of the interview was that he didn't say sorry to Jewish people, and four times he was asked to, after being accused of anti-Semitism by the UK's chief rabbi. But the weird thing is, he has said sorry before. So why ask him, but then why not just say it again? That's the bit I don't understand.
I could have imagined him kind of saying it sarcastically. The way he was acting there, like saying it sarcastically. OK, sorry. Or muttering it under his breath.
And look, what would be the right answer in that situation? Well, according to Labor MP Jess Phillips, quote, the only response to the chief rabbi that is moral is, I'm sorry and I'll do whatever I possibly can to win back your community's trust. It works, and there are people in his party going, this is what you should be saying. And look, this is an election. Your opponents are going to use whatever they can to attack you. We know that. But it's also your job not to give them ammunition. So if you once co-sponsored a bill to change the name of Holocaust Memorial Day to Genocide Memorial Day and you presented it on Holocaust Memorial Day, you're going to cop some flack. The chief rabbi attacked Jeremy Corbyn, the Archbishop of Canterbury supported the rabbi, the Muslim Council of Britain attacked the Tories, then the Hindu Council took a pop at Jeremy Corbyn. The Buddhists said it doesn't matter who gets in, we're going to have to do it all again in 5 years' time. And the atheists are waiting for Ricky Gervais to tell them what to do. Someone called Gambit Man said, is it OK that the Tory party publish their manifesto, then go into hiding? Boris Johnson launched their manifesto on a Sunday when no one was paying attention, and much like a Sunday magazine, it was pretty light on substance. Here's an example. Labor had an entire section on disability in their manifesto. The Tories one had 6 disabled policies in total. To put that into perspective, there were 8 photographs of Boris Johnson. There are more photos of Boris Johnson than there are disabled policies in the Tory manifesto.
You didn't buy the Tory calendar by mistake?
Is it OK that in 6 days' time we'll all go into a voting booth and decide the fate of the nation by placing a cross on a piece of paper? Yes, it is. Is it OK to say the last person to have this much trouble putting an X in a box was Henry VIII?
Oh, God!
I mean,
they don't want to hear the original version of that joke that got banned by the lawyer.
Are you really going to tell me the Henry VIII joke was too soon? As the general election enters what should be the exciting stage, Laughing Gravy said, is it OK that our choices for PM are so bad I'm having to vote for the party that I think is the least shit? Now, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn are the least popular leaders of recent times. The more people see of Jo Swinson in this election, the less they seem to like her as well. But here's the thing, politicians have always been mocked. Mark Twain said politicians and diapers must be changed often and for the same reason. That was 100 years ago. Plato said those who are too smart to engage in politics are punished by those who are dumber. That was over 2,000 years ago. Henry Kissinger said 90% of the politicians give the other 10% a bad reputation. And he bombed Cambodia. Every election is about voting for who you think is the least shit. We've said it before and we'll say it again. They're not all as bad as each other. Some of them are worse. There was a debate on ITV. Oh, was it ITV? No, BBC tonight. Oh, one of those.
Don't give a shit. If it's not Channel 4, I'm not interested, mate.
Exactly.
Although I do like to work for those channels as well.
Now, I know the audience here haven't seen... You wouldn't have seen because you were here.
I can't believe it ended in a fist fight.
There was a poll conducted by YouGov immediately afterwards to find out who viewers thought had won this particular debate tonight. The results...
I'm not saying it went badly, but it was John Major.
The results... OK. Boris Johnson was deemed by viewers to have won, but by 52% to 48%.
There we go.
I mean, when has that result ever split the country? Nick Masters said, is it OK Boris Johnson won't sit down and do an interview with Andrew Neil? Now, after every political leader got a grilling from the BBC's Andrew Neil over the past few weeks, Boris Johnson has still managed to avoid it. But we said it before, it's the Ming vase analogy. Boris Johnson, I saw someone last night saying Boris is basically trying to carry a Ming vase over a freeway, over a motorway. He's got this precious thing. Sorry?
We've all been there.
We've all done it. He's got this precious thing, which is the lead. He's in power, he's Prime Minister. All he has to do is just not trip, not break it, not submit himself to a really tough interview. And much like Boris Johnson, the Ming vase is hollow, fragile, cracks under pressure and has been handed down from generation to generation. Much of what Boris Johnson just said has been disproved, and yet he's still spouting it in that thing of, I'll say it often enough and people will just forget I've been... He promised 50,000 more nurses, but we know that that will only happen if 19,000 are convinced not to quit. That's not the definition of the word more. Also, six new hospitals have been approved, not 40 new hospitals. And what I really was annoyed with... OK, I think it's really dangerous to start singling out news agencies, whether it's the BBC or Channel 4 or whoever it is. As soon as you start saying, don't listen to the BBC, don't listen to the BBC, who does that sound like? That sounds like, don't listen to NBC, it's fake news. He's morphing into Donald Trump.
It doesn't really matter what he kind of says, because it's not going to stick to him. Like Corbyn seems kind of, you know, portrays himself as quite moral, so everything that he kind of... They pick on every little thing with Corbyn, whereas with Boris, it's kind of like... You know, you've got to bear in mind, like, 7 years ago, he was, like, hanging from a zip wire.
Yeah.
Like, waving flags, and you just go, yeah, and now he's Prime Minister, and it's like, they've accepted he's just a bit of a helmet.
Well, here's the thing. Jeremy Corbyn isn't winning people over the way he did in 2017. The anti-Semitism allegations continue to follow him, and while some people say it's all just a smear campaign, when those allegations are coming from Labor MPs, from the Jewish Labour movement and from the Chief Rabbi, you can't just discount them. Sandra said, is it OK that Corbyn got pissy with Phil and Holly on Tuesdays this morning? Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn got a bit of a grilling about the anti-Semitism from Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby. He did apologise, but not before a little bit of trademark snarkiness. Corbyn announced this week he won't be using the Prime Minister's country residence checkers if he becomes Prime Minister. Instead, he said he will give it to the homeless. But here's the thing, he can't, because there's a line of succession. You can't just go, I'm going to give this to the homeless. It has to go first to the Chancellor, then the Foreign Secretary, then it goes down to the US Ambassador to the UK. What?
Just the vision of him giving it away to the homeless. Like, somebody asked him for change, he's just like, shit, sorry, I've only got this country mansion.
One major difference between the parties is the way they're treating disability. Now, Labor have devoted an entire section of their manifesto to disability issues. They tweeted a disability pledge this week. Boris Johnson, on the other hand, has promised social care would be at the top of his agenda, and yet it wasn't mentioned once in his manifesto. And look, while we're talking disability, one Tory candidate has caused quite a stir overnight and prompted a lot of Is It OKs. But not only that, I got a direct message from a British Paralympian saying, please, for the sake of us disabled people, discuss this tonight on The Last Leg. So here's what happened. Sally Ann Hart was talking about a report that suggested people with learning disabilities could be paid less than minimum wage as a way of enticing companies to employ them. Now, she backed this up by saying paying some people with learning disabilities less than minimum wage was fine because they don't understand money.
I don't understand, because, like, the Tories, they want to cut, like, benefits.
Yeah.
And by her account, it's like, pay disabled people less. I can imagine she celebrates Christmas by kicking away Tiny Tim's crutches.
Yeah?
I think...
Yeah.
I mean, she could be an MP. So
Yes.
I'd say, if she thinks that about people with learning disabilities, people with her views should be paid no money. That is how it should work.
Well, there's every chance to...
I'm not sure she gets elected. You say.
Sally Ann Hart says her comments were taken out of context. She apologised for any offence caused, but if you're representing the party that is seen as symbolising privilege and wealth, it is not a good look to say that someone scrabbling to make ends meet doesn't understand money. If anything, that person knows exactly about money. I'd suggest that if you belong to a party in which one of your MPs was born into a mega-rich family, was raised by their nanny, then married someone even richer and now lives on a country estate, maybe they don't understand money.